I'd like to invite our panelists to come up. We have 3 seats here. We have 3 panelists. We'll just get the microphones set up so that they have those available. Totally random, however you like to sit. And as I said earlier, the way we discussed about trying to set this event up, one of the things that we've been really excited to try to do is how to bring together various people who are really in the area of practice. And so certainly we have people here, myself included, who come from the university world. We have researchers. But ultimately, it's how to put these various ideas around innovation, pushing the envelope. How do we put that into practice? And so I have the privilege of joining some panelists here and facilitating the next little while. We're going to go through, have a discussion, but we also hope that there will be a chance at the end where we can have some questions. So hopefully we'll have somebody around with a microphone. And so ultimately, it does focus around this idea of emerging technologies and this idea of a sustainable match. And it's my real pleasure to have these 3 here, and hopefully over the time of this panel we can begin to further explore some of these issues relating to art, technology, and sustainability. So to start off with, I'll ask each individual panelist to introduce themselves, and then we'll move from there. So next to me, Mónica, maybe if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Okay, I thought we were... have to.
Yeah, I'm
Do you hear me?
Okay. Top. I'm going from the bottom, I guess. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I saw the list, and I'm the last one. So hi everybody. My name is Mónica Rikić. I'm an electronic artist from Barcelona, and I'm here thanks to a STARS residency. I'm here with my colleague. We're both just kicking off our STARS residency in the university. And I work, as I just said, I work with electronics. I like to call them handmade electronics. And I also work with creative coding, and I'm very interested in alternative technologies, diversity in technology, in a way of creating like diverse devices, and critical thinking a lot.
Thank you, Mónica. And we'll move next. Nuno.
Hello, my name is Nuno Correia. I'm originally from Portugal, now working in Estonia at Tallinn University. So I'm an academic, actually lived and studied in Finland for quite a while. So I work in the field of human-computer interaction and the intersection of that with art. That means I'm interested in how people engage with technology, how people enact agency with the help of technology. In particular related to art and performing arts. I'm very interested in embodiment, issues of using your body and full body. And I'm also interested in the sensory impact of that, so how you can create sound and how you can create imagery through your body and through movement. So I've been exploring that through music, and lately also through dance, contemporary dance specifically. And I suppose I'll talk a bit more from the music perspective in this panel.
Thank you, Nuno. Jari.
Yes, hello. I'm Jari Kauppinen. I'm a sound designer and also a retired professor in sound design from the Uniarts Helsinki. And nowadays I'm affiliated with the Center of Artistic Research there. And I'm preparing my dissertation there. And the working title is Sound Design of the Otherwise. And there I'm trying to look into this like possibility and form of like ecologically aware or sustainable sound design practice. So what that could entail.
Okay.
Yeah, and also perhaps I could also mention that because I have been working in the university with the students, so that these like issues of sustainability and the role of technology and using the latest technologies is of course in this like present situation, they are pressing questions, so that we have been discussing with them a lot about this, like the future, like fate of these, like let's say technology-based professions.
Okay, thank you. One of the first questions I'm going to ask is around this idea of what we can call the Venn diagram between these 3 concepts: the art, technology, and sustainability, and how these 3 interact. And asking our panelists if they can provide maybe conceptually where they feel they lie within that Venn diagram, and then if they can potentially provide an example of within their own practice about kind of where they feel they sit. And maybe to start off with, just I think certainly from our side here in Oulu, the Center for Arts Innovation is a new entity that's been created here in the city, really to help us understand what can be Oulu's contribution to that. There's already, we're learning a great diversity of players already in the region here, so ultimately it's trying to see where does Oulu fit in that. But before maybe coming back to that, asking some of our panelists where they see themselves fitting. So Mónica, maybe where do you feel with your work?
I'm all the time the first now. Yeah, I can see.
I'll try to
I should have chosen the other seat. No, I'm joking. Yeah, well, although I don't address directly the topic of sustainability in my practice, I've been very interested in, as I would just said before, the concept of technology diversity or technodiversities, which is actually posed by a philosopher called Yuk Uy, which I'm very obsessed with his work actually. And yeah, so I think that mainly like working from this field of philosophy that I try to merge with engineering through art. I think that if we understand that technology, it's part of culture, it's not like a separate thing. It doesn't belong to the industry only. It doesn't belong to, I don't know, to the engineering only. It's part of our culture. Then I think that it can be a way for making it more sustainable, because each people, like each community, can engage with technology and through technology and create their own technology in a way that it's more appropriated for their needs in general, different fields of needs. And I think that this idea of like in my work, how do I approach it, is by creating all these narratives through gadgets that would, and also through workshops, which I really like education to promote that people can see that they are not only consumers of technology, but they can also be producers of their own technologies. For me, that's very important, because we have, I believe that we, and including myself, we've I don't know, the comfort of the devices and the technology that it's around us. It's so comforting that we're just kind of lazy, and we don't. It's not only a thing about surveillance. It's not only a thing about who's watching behind our devices, but also, you know, about our way of engaging in the world through the tools we are using. And for me, that's how I try to promote it in my work.
Thank you. Nuno, any examples?
Indeed. So I think my work is kind of a constellation of different things which are not necessarily so connected, but I have my own artistic practice as a media artist and musician, and then I have my own research, and I try to bridge them as much as I can, but it's not always possible. So the example I would bring would be from my own artistic practice, and it is my work in progress now to connect it to my research. But as an electronic musician, I have a duo with another Estonia-based artist called Tavi Varm. So we have a duo called Varm and Correia, and we've been collaborating with an Estonian association called Biotopia, which explores also the intersection between sustainability and art. And we've been doing a series of music-based collaborations with them. So the idea here is that through music, and our music is electronic in nature, so that's the technological angle there, we raise awareness towards ecology and sustainability. And we do so through the musical nature of the musical materials we use. So we record natural sounds, and not just nature sounds, but also the impact of the Anthropocene, the impact of man in nature also comes across sonically. So sort of the sonic materials themselves, but also how we perform. So we choose settings that also connect to this thinking around ecological awareness and sustainability awareness. So, for example, We've performed in a natural park. We perform in parks and nature settings. So I can, if I don't have, we don't have time now to show examples of that. But if you want, we have videos and sonic material online. So my name is Nuno Correia. So I think you'll find it in the program, and my website nunocorreia.com. So all together, and then you'll find these different works, and namely this Verman. So I could, later maybe I can bring up some examples, not from me, but from Biotopia. And also as an academic, I'm involved in educational programs around sustainability. But maybe we can come back to that later.
Great, thank you. Jari.
Yes. Thank you. Let's see. Well, I think being in many roles, then also the balance changes, so that you have these like different mixes of things. But I think some kind of a perhaps defining feature would be in the past couple of years, 3 years. It might be perhaps called thinking about this the levels of technology that we are using, because of course when you are pursuing a career in professional career in these art and tech and design context, then it seems, and of course it's totally rational to think about that way, that you have to have the latest technologies and the latest tools to be able to compete. But at the same time, I've been thinking so that these are kind of, if you are using the latest software, let's say, and the latest computers, then you are in a certain possibility space with everyone else who is using these technologies, so that you have this and this program and you're using it, then you are kind of sharing the same space and competing there. And I have been thinking about this giving up certain technologies and going back in history in some perhaps media archaeological way, so that what would happen if I give up some technology, so that because then I'm setting myself on an other kind of possibility space, and that's something where I can then work and perhaps try to achieve something that's unique in a sense, that it's not its character is not the mainstream work that you then encounter here and there.
Oh, thank you. We're going from this point, picking on a comment, Nuno, you mentioned this idea of embodiment, and something I've been hearing already in some conversations with some of you during the event is this idea that, are we just talking about high tech, or can we actually have low tech ways of doing innovation? And certainly for us locally, it was a very concerted effort why we called this center the Center for Arts Innovation and not the Center for Art and Technology, because the idea of being able to do innovations that are very, very low tech and in many ways can involve more around new methodologies that can potentially have very old technologies, and that in itself can also be very innovative. And something that I'd like to then for the next question to the panelists is around this idea of what it means for the embodiment when, let's say, you might be involved in a practice where you have an audience, where you're potentially live, whether it's in a physical space or a virtual space, but this idea of live interaction and embodiment, and wondering kind of how that might connect with some of your work. And just as an example, for us, this is very much of mine, because I think early on in one of our European projects, we were part of supporting a panel at Ars Electronica, as many of you may know, in Linz, Austria, the annual festival. And we were with a project that involves theaters. And some of the panelists we had from the theater world was saying, well, we cannot forget the core idea of what it means for a performer to be on a stage and for audience member to be, or that fourth wall, but at least to be in the same space. So this idea of embodiment being very core to that work. And so maybe to pose to you, and Jari, I'll go this way then.
Now that I
So-
want to start.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The only question that I want to start.
Okay,
Come
Mónica,
on.
I'll start with you. But so this idea of embodiment, how does this support with yours? So we'll go.
Well,
with Mónica.
yeah. Now you go with me,
Tradition.
and because actually that's like that's the core of my practice. And you've mentioned for me very very triggering keywords, which is physicality, theater, and I work in the physical world. And it was very funny because when all this NFT hype came, that no one remembers now, but everybody was like, you want to do something virtual? It's like my work is essentially physical and it's essentially handmade. And I come from my early days was from experimental games and experimental video games, which were video games that actually come out of the screen, and that's how I started learning how important it is, the relationship with people, when, at least for me, for my intentions in art, to explain a concept which ended up being explaining stories. So in the end, I've been so related also with the theater world as a artist in my early days, actress, in school and stuff. But not only that, but I pose my devices, my physical devices, my objects, my interactive objects in a way. They are theatrical devices for me. They are stories that they are electronic objects that tell stories, and they need the presence of the audience in order to do the conceptual end click of what the piece is going to explain. So for me, at least from my practice, I do need the physicality and people and personification of the space.
Yeah, thank you. Nuno.
Yeah, so for me, this is kind of a very, very dear topic. I think, academically, I come from a field called human-computer interaction, so which is part of intersection between computing, design, psychology, these kind of things. And I think a big shift happened in the beginning of the 2000s, late 90s, where computing became powerful enough that it could kind of disappear, right? So before, we as artists were kind of conditioned by this kind of clunky technology. We had to adapt to that. They were heavy, they were big, and thankfully, with miniaturization and faster processing, these things could go a bit in the background, and we could. It hasn't always been so utopian, but it has allowed us to step back and rethink how we use these things and how we can make them more humane and more adaptable to us instead of us adapting to them, right? Mm-hmm. So how does that reflect in my practice? Well, I work a lot with the body, and I work a lot with dance, and I think there's something kind of sustainable in there that we are using the technology, not the technology using us. So there's something there to think about. I don't have a ready answer to that, but there's something there that is more ecological.
Yeah. Okay.
And just a quick note, also establishing a link there about embodiment and the connecting with the audience. So these settings like botanical gardens, parks, nature, where we've been performing, it creates a certain setting for our expression as well, that it kind of puts us in a certain mood and puts it in a certain, that it's more symbiotic with the material we have and with the audience, and we hope the audience feels that way as well. We've had informal comments in that direction, but so there's something there which is being in the place, embodied and emplaced somehow. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jari.
Yes, I also think that embodied presence is like a really powerful thing, or really powerful technique if you are thinking it from this angle, so that how to use it. And lately I've been doing work which is like perhaps site-specific in a sense, or specific in that sense that it's like some of the aims of the sound design and sounds use and the techniques and technologies used, they are aiming towards this like heightened sense of embodied presence, so that what's happening now is really happening to us in this very moment, so that we created with Meiju Niskala to the first Helsinki Biennale this site-specific work which took place on a meadow there on this like former military island, and it was like a really interesting project in the sense, because when you are then like trying to work and trying to foster these like effective qualities of the participants on the other hand, and the elements of the performance on the other hand, and how they come together. So it was a headphone piece, and there was this like embodied presence of a performer, but it was like only in sound. And then you are in this like beautiful place, and you are then kind of guided to think about the loss that has already happened and is bound to happen perhaps also in the future, so that it's like really interesting field, but very delicate, so that you have to really kind of experiment and know what you are doing, and so.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just looking at our technical support. There were some images. Do we have those available? And wondering if maybe if you could slide through those. Maybe I can start just by on the fourth image to give some time for our panelists to think a little bit more how to connect this issue, for example, of embodiment, the live experience. And something I'd like to share to begin with is, I think in many ways, part of a challenge that I think we were faced with this morning from the keynote, this idea that there is incredible change and a lot of dynamism in terms of what the kind of creativity we see in spaces like social media. And thank you, yeah. And so we are part of a European funded Creative Europe project with a number of theaters and cultural organizations across Europe. It's called ACUTE. The short form is Culture Test Beds. And so really what it focuses around is supporting a series of 9 productions over the next few years. And this is one of the first. That was a production created by a theater based in Amsterdam called De Tunnel Makerij. And it's a youth theater. And this is them touring their production through our program, through our project, and performing at Ars Electronica in Linz, Austria. So if you're familiar with the space, it's a very large immersive space. I won't go into all the details because I'm not necessarily someone from that theater, but the topic area is a performance in a theater production around a young person's movement into what's called the rabbit hole of social media work. And so this was the theater's attempt to enter into that world of social media and use it as a key aspect of the narrative design for the production itself, and an absolutely fascinating exercise. And so, again, if you have the chance to learn more about the Tunnel Makerij, we would certainly encourage you. And there are some other partners from that project here as well. I encourage you to reach out to them, such as our partners in Dortmund. But I wanted to share this as an example of, again, when we're working, let's say, with a large theater, for them, what we find, an early question for them was to say, well, so do we have to use some kind of technology if we want to do something different? And our answer, of course, was, well, no, we're not telling you that you have to use technology just for technology's sake. But it was potentially using the opportunities afforded by certain new technologies to encourage them to do something different and to work in a bit of a different way. And so this is the question I'd like to pose to the panelists here as we move to the it's kind of nearing the end of our panel, is this idea of doing things in a different way. And potentially, I think you all have an image, and maybe if you can help to describe what we're seeing in the image and connect it to what you'd like to share, and how that connects with how we are doing things differently through this intersection of sustainability, art, and technology. Shall I mix it up? Maybe you just go to the next image and we'll see randomly whose that is. So I'm breaking with tradition here. I think you have to go, if you go back to the next. Okay, so there we go. Mónica, this is yours. So can you help us? Give us a little sense of what we're seeing and this idea of doing things in a different way.
Yeah, okay, well, this is just doing it quick. This is one of the installations I had in my solo exhibition in Barcelona last spring. And what I was trying to make, it was a set of 6 installations that were trying to propose a speculative, different evolution of cognitive systems. And these cognitive systems, which can be explained shortly like AI now, instead of showing their cognition or the way in cognition by spoken and written language. They had it in a physicality expression for the main public or mainstream public, but it also all the exhibition was connected through a network and through a system that I created of relationships between them. And also all the code was exhibited, because for me it was like this way, and going back to sustainability and the topics we are talking about, it was to open the black boxes and as a creative choice or as a style that I do, I also normally show all the circuits and everything. And also I'm very into the open hardware scene, and I really think that all the circuits and everything should be open and shared. So that was another way of seeing it. I mean, this is a place like and I'm just going to finish with this, like this space in Barcelona is in the city center, it's free, it's open. So you also have to, from my perspective, you also have to take in account which type of audience you have. So I normally work in layers, and one layer is the colors and the and the attractive part, which is the only one that I'm going to explain in now. And that's the one that I was trying to attract with the people, like non-specialized audience that can see how the devices are done, that the materials are not technological materials, all of them. So that's one of the strategies I use for promoting people to be producers of technology.
Thank you, Monica. All right, let's see what the next image is. Okay,
Yes.
Jari,
Yes.
here we are. Can
Yes.
you help us understand what we're seeing?
This is a shot of the preparing process for the Helsinki Biennale piece. So that we were working in Vallisaari, and this is kind of a, let's say, heterochronic practice in a sense that we are using recordings that are made on this very place, but they are made, of course, earlier, and then you create like the piece or the performance from that, and that it's kind of piped back into the same space. And when you are using these like headphones that are also allowing the environmental sounds to come through, so that you have this like two realities superimposed onto each other. And this is a year before the actual piece took place, so that already we have the substitute or the agency of the audience there, so that we were using extensively this like binaural technologies, which is something that puts you in this place where the recording is made, so that it was like really short like feedback loop in that sense, that all the materials that you are hearing are made in the were made in the very same place, and then they are just like refined and then put back on the same environment. So that's also a kind of way of parting with technology or creating these kind of low-tech solutions, so that you just don't use some like effects libraries or libraries of stuff or something like that, so that you are kind of reducing or making this distinction that it's only like local stuff that you are using.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, and we'll move on to our final image. Okay, Nuno.
Okay.
Doing things differently. What are we seeing?
So this is me and my partner in crime, Tavi Varm. So we are in Lahema Natural Park in Estonia. And during Biotopia Festival, this is summer of 2022. So I think what's curious here is that we had to adapt.
False
sonic-
alarm. False alarm.
Reindeer somewhere coming. So one interesting thing that I think we're doing differently here is, adapting to the situation. So that there's no power there's no power plugs in the forest, right? So everything. We have a kind of highly sophisticated setup, but very portable and very. It can run on batteries, right? So we can adapt to this. So we had to think of that we had to adapt to technology that could be powerful but still easy enough to perform, in a forest. And even the sound system was, Bluetooth speakers powered and things like that. But quite effective with what you can do with today's technology. Before you need, a generator or something like that to work with that. So I think that's one aspect, the technical setting, right? And I think the other thing I think the content itself, the musical, the nature of the music, and it's interesting that Jari was talking about, the location based. So we actually had a different approach in a sense that our music is location based, but we bring it from different locations, and then you're listening to this. Each track, let's say, is inspired or recorded in different locations, but you're in a third location, let's say, in the forest, listening to a recording from Lisbon, for example. So it creates this kind of hybrid space between two spaces that kind of clash together, and we kind of enjoy that juxtaposition. Another thing I think we try to highlight through our music is to demystify or to bring awareness that this kind of idea of pure nature is difficult to attain. So there's always some human interference that we try to highlight. And it's interesting that Jari was mentioning, for example, this kind of military island. So we just recorded last summer. We were in Hiiumaa, in an island in Estonia, which was very militarized. So it was sealed off actually to the public in the Soviet era. So a lot of bunkers, abandoned bunkers, and things like that. And it created this kind of post-apocalyptic. Humanity has disappeared and left some structures behind, kind of feeling that we wanted to capture sonically. So this idea of this human interference in nature, I think it's something that we're not trying to bring awareness to that and not over glamorizing the nature, the purity of nature that unfortunately is something difficult to attain.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The final word, when we wrap up the panel, I'm going to come back to each of the panelists to, if they can begin to start thinking of what they would say to somebody, let's say, who's a student or somebody who's young who would want to get into more of these kind of topics. Is there a lesson learned or a hint that you'd like to give them in a very short form? But before we finish, I would like to open it up to the audience, and I don't know if we have an extra microphone. Do we have an extra microphone for the audience, or do I need to share my microphone? So maybe we can share a microphone. So we have a few minutes. I'd like to see if any of the topics or any of the conceptual ideas that we've been discussing during this panel, do they resonate with anyone here? And do you have a question for any of our panelists? I'm just looking out, trying to see behind the light. Comments, questions? It's okay. We're in Finland, so for those of you not in Finland, I need to wait for about 10 seconds. It might be awkward for some of you, but it's okay. We'll wait, and then we'll get some of the hands. Okay, we have one. Thank you. All right.
Hello. Is this working? Yes. Yeah, okay, good. My name is Ari Tenla. I'm the Managing Director for the Zodiac Center for New Dance. And I would like to point out the sort of the initial thought about dividing the technology and the human, and the embodiment and the human. I don't think that they are so closely intertwined in today's society that it's quite harmful to sort of say that there is like a pure human embodiment which is outside of the technological realm. 55% of the population in the world live in urban areas, and an average US citizen uses 7 hours a day to look at screens. So I would like to emphasize that the screen has become the main medium how we look at the world, and therefore it also changes the way we do art. And when I was teaching at the same university, I was addressing this idea that, okay, the dancer's embodiment has changed, that it has also become flat, two-dimensional, and directed to the front. So therefore, the art of dance has lost the three-dimensionality, for example. And in this post-internet area, we have to think that the interconnectedness of human technology is actually the topic that we are discussing, and have to be very keen on realizing the changes in the culture.
No, thank you for bringing that up. And I know we have a question, maybe just a quick response. That example I was given to you from a previous panel I was sharing with you, not necessarily that it was something that for all of us we agreed on. But I think what you're now bringing up is something that I think we also continue the dialogue around, is when you have these large established cultural institutions that have been doing things in a certain way. You talk to an opera house or a theater that says this is the way we've always done things. What's been very fascinating is to pose these challenges to these institutions to see how they potentially can see things in a potentially different way, and to understand how to do things differently in such so that it potentially takes some of these new contemporary contexts that we now live in. So thank you very much for bringing that up. And yeah, definitely, it's there's a lot of food for thought that we need to take apart. Jari, did you want to a quick question? Then we'll move to the next question. Jari,
I would like to comment on Aris. It was a good notion, and perhaps to go a bit further from your comment or question or something like that, so that I'm thinking that they are not different, but they are the same in a sense that you can talk about like techniques of the body or techniques of using technologies and also media, so that we can think those as also like inhabiting the same dimension, so that the body is a media as well as a screen in a sense, so that you can bring them also into this like same framework or same like theoretical frame and think about them with these terms. And then I think that's quite like a fruitful activity or practice, because then when you are using the same terminology or same kind of like, let's say, art philosophical background or something like that, then it kind of reveals really interesting things, because we are kind of making these dichotomies all the time, so that you have like the technology and the nature and the human and nature and so on and so on.
Thank you, Jari. So the next question we have at the back.
Hello, I'm Mai Sarangi, and I'm a graphic designer, but I have some background in video game design and video game graphics. And because of that, I got very interested in this idea of experimental video games that use have elements from the game period in the real world in some sense. So I'm interested. Could you elaborate a little bit more about exact mechanics on how, in some of these examples that were shown in the pictures, this was achieved? Like, what types of mediums did you use for the physical subsets of these games, and what types of input from the player did you use, and things like that? I'm very keen on learning more about that as inspiration.
Thank you. I'm going to be quick, and then if you want, we can talk about it after here. So we don't have enough time because it's a wide topic. But yeah, well, so basically the timeline would be that I prefer to, for me, to working with games or experimental games that go outside the screen. For me, it was a strategy that matched better the way I wanted to approach art, which is that I wanted to take out the hierarchies between artwork, artist, and public. So if you tell to someone that this is not an artwork, this is a video game or it's a game, their approach to the thing, it's completely different. So they are more free, they want to play, If you're playing, you can take things less serious, but then you can enter through the concept easily. And that's the kind of the strategy that's been constant in my practice. At the beginning, very directly, like I would call it a player at the beginning, but now it's just the audience, but I still keep that. And also, for me, it was a way of creating systems that are open. You put people, and that's where I merge it with theater or role-play games, that you can call it. Basically, theater is that. And if they are participatory, it's like you just, you throw a story, you throw a scenario, and then how do you work with that? And analyzing what roles do people choose and how they interact with the devices at this moment is what I'm interested on. That's what I learn from my works, and then I take it further. But we can discuss it further if you want. Yeah, thank you.
I think we might have time for one more question. Okay. If not, I'll pose it then the final word for our panelists before we finish up. So let's say for those people who, if you've interacted with students or young people who are trying to navigate these different kinds of issues, any hints or advice you would give that young person? Maybe I'll start at the end. Jari?
Well, this is a difficult one.
I know this is a tough one, but
yes.
a concise hint you would give to a student, for example.
Yes, but I think it wraps down to this, that these things are not either or, so that you don't have to use like the latest technology, so you overuse them perhaps, but also it's not an option if you want to be like pursue a career which is based on some technology, so that it's not also an option to give them up altogether, but it's about finding like your own mix or your own niche, so that being critical towards technology is okay, and then you have to do the work that you really get a grasp of what you are working with, and then from there you can say, I don't need this and I don't need that, but this is something that I want to use and this is something that I need.
Yeah, thank you, Jari. Nuno?
So picking up on what Jari just mentioned, so I think one thread that went throughout the discussion is this, that we can be low tech, that we don't need the highest tech. So it reminds me of these kind of masters of painting of the 20th century, that they have to learn the techniques but then forget about them somehow and be freer of that, right? So we can, I think the younger generations, yes, they may need to learn these kind of high-tech techniques, the latest machine learning algorithms, but then have the critical capability to forget about them and to move on. So I think that's a thread that, an advice that we could give to the younger generations. Yes, you do need to learn some technical things that are important and vital in this day and age, but then be able not to be dominated by them and to. So that's one connection I would like to make, and the other one is a bit more ambiguous, but I would like to make that connection, for example, with the keynote today, is this idea that we should be critical and try to understand what's behind the algorithm, what's behind the things, what agendas are behind. So be critical and try to. So many of the technologies we're given and many of the tools are given, they are black boxes, right? That we are. That are presented very shiny and very nice, and they are very smart, and they can do this and they can. But can we unpack that? And I think there's a lot of need for these critical perspectives and kind of to represent, to identify, to unpack, to show what are these strings that are being pulling these things. So I think that we need that from the younger generation, to be critical and to also help us visualize. I mean, identify this and represent these things.
Great, thank you, Mónica.
From the experience I have with younger people, I would say that things take time. You have to be constant and put effort, because everything is so quick and so in our hand, and we've also like other people, we forgot to dedicate time to things we love, and to get to a point, you need to dedicate time you need to put your body, and your mind. And for me, like, there's 3 things I love in the world a lot, which are electronics, coding, and reading. And those 3 things need time. So it's like make time for doing what you like. Don't wait for things just to happen like this, because it takes time. And that's when you can go be critic and do everything. But it's time for you and what you like.
Thank you, and I think a great way to finish off. So if you can join me in a round of applause for our panelists, thank you very much. And certainly a lot there, and so I think in many ways we've heard a lot of concepts. We've already started touching on a number of different ways of working, ways of doing things differently, but certainly thank you very much to the panelists for helping us to push these dialogues forward. In the agenda, I'm now going to pass it back over to Sofia to help us understand what comes next. So thanks very much, everyone. I'll pass it over to Sofia.